أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Hazrat Muslim Maud had said, may Allah be pleased with him, had said, congregational prayers, in my view, is the most important intervention to teach children good morals and habits. Children should be trained to offer salat in congregation. In my view, there is no bigger enemy of a child than those parents who do not inculcate the habit of offering congregational prayer in their children. While a grown-up who fails to offer congregational salat is a hypocrite, parents who do not inculcate this habit in their children are their murderers. It is impossible for a child to sustain irreparable moral damage if parents help them develop a habit of offering congregational prayers. Alhamdulillah, I've been blessed to visit many different areas. I've heard a lot of stories, and I've asked people to submit, if they can, the success stories that has worked for them. And I'm sorry, maybe my... So I'm trying to relate to you the stories where I had visited different areas and I've heard stories that have worked, alhamdulillah. In the Midwest area, a father had established prayer timings and made it a high priority. The key here is that he is communicating with the children via text. So he's becoming more tech savvy and communicating with the children, and what they know best sometimes is by text messages or online. Another suggestion was that there's a checklist of each of the salat timings and of the salat, and he marks them completed if the children have completed those salats at their appointed times. At the same time, the children may receive a reward, or they may reduce the reward for not completing the minimum requirements. And that's up to you and your children. And then I also know that the young children are always excited about these checklist systems. And they need some structure, and when they see this checklist, they know where they stand. And again, this is a culture change. This is the culture that we want to incorporate amongst us, is that we want to have Congregational Sal'at be our culture. In the Great Lakes region, I was invited to a house, alhamdulillah. It was a young family of 6. All it was just a prayer timing, and the father mentioned that it's time for prayers. And the children scurried along, performed their ablution, and each child had a role, what to do. It was really a nice scene, including the young girl. The boys laid out their prayer sheets. They had the imam prayer mats laid out, and they called out the azan, and the father led the prayers. And it was cleanup time. Again, the children knew what to do. It was a very heartwarming scene. Again, that's the culture that we want to have. Culture of Congregational Sal'at. In the New York region, a father had offered his place for Congregational Sal'at for the family. At the beginning, the children would fuss and bicker, and they used delay tactics that I've got homework, etc., or some other things. The children were not accustomed to offering Congregational Sal'at, at least on a regular basis. But the key here is offering it on time and being consistent and being persistent as well. Now, the culture has changed in that household, and the children, as soon as they come home, they know what to do. They get excited, they perform the ablution, and they offer the congregational prayers with enthusiasm. And I can tell you the father's pride is beaming when he told me this story, alhamdulillah. Again, the culture change that we want to include in here. It's the culture of Congregational Sal'at. In the Southwest, alhamdulillah, Ansar was not regular. He admitted that. And alhamdulillah, and now he's offering congregational prayers, and not only that, his family and children are also offering Congregational Sal'at, and they've become more regular to the masjid. Again, here the secret is persistence. And again, the culture change here. I keep forgetting to click on this. Multitasking. In the Southwest region, a family there created a culture there and created a Salat center. And again, the family was called upon to help out. A tifl there arranged the prayer mats, called the azan, and not only that, served the guests. And then the key here was that he had reminded the members by texting that to please come on time and offer the prayers, and he had set up a day on Monday. Another example of keeping the times is the dry erase board with the prayer timings updated. This is also important too, that the dry erase board, you don't have to buy the hard calendar, you can just get the dry erase board and update it weekly. Across many other regions, I've noticed some other good things that have been happening is that the group texts with the family, and I will share you a communication later between the family. It's pretty funny, and you'll enjoy the humor in it. But the group text between family is sometimes fun. I do it. It's a lot of fun, actually. You can exchange photos, but then you can also remind the children that please come down for prayers. Again, there's an award system. They lose their iPod, they lose their phones or access to other things. And when my son also did not do something, I immediately cut off his line. He got the message very clear, and he was upset, but he knew that he had to comply to this. The calendar also, I'll show you a picture a little bit later, that sometimes we keep a calendar of the regular calendars of the month, and then the Maghrib and Isha timings are also listed there. It's all printed, and the whole family sees it on the fridge or wherever is a common area. And then the important thing is when the guests do come, that you should still show importance to Congregational Sal'at, and you should try to offer the Congregational Sal'at either before dinner or after dinner. But this shows priority to you, to the children. Again, these are all examples of the culture change. I also want to emphasize that we have to keep on offering the prayers at the prescribed time. This allows the children to understand that prayers always come first. And texting and group chat helps this, and it's a lot of fun with the children. And I'll show you some pictures where there's even some emojis, they call them. Also, Congregational Sal'at at the mosque allowed many of them to make new friends and allowed them, the children, to have sleepovers and become very close friends, that they go out together and they travel to the Ijtemas and things like that. But I also want to emphasize that we're the Qawam, we are the leaders of the house, we're the protectors, and that we cannot substitute this. As one comment was made to me, that we cannot substitute that role with television, school, nanny, or babysitter. This role is ours, and we need to take charge and create that culture amongst our children and our family. So this is an example of one calendar that's a printed calendar, and you can see the timings there. Zohar and Asr at 6 p.m. and Maghrib and Isha at 9 p.m. So this was one example. I don't have the example of a dry erase board, but I hope that you know what I mean by that. It's a board, and you can wipe it off and then write updates on there. Now, I wanted to share with you a message that one family had shared with me. And here's a message that the father says, namaz now, prayers now, and the son says, here I come. So that's one example. Then he also sent the same text to his, in June, another text to the family, saying, starting namaz in 3 minutes. The mother says, okay. And the daughter really gets into it and puts little okay signs in their emojis. So again, they're having fun with this, and it keeps them updated. Now, the key here is that when you are not persistent, or you're not on time, this is the message that comes back. Here in September, the father says, please come for prayers. The son says, I did namaz up here at 8:30. That's the time we set. So again, there's a culture change there. But let's keep also on the time. But I'd love to share this message with you all that it happens once in a while that we're late, but the son is already aware and already offered his prayers. Best practices that I have taken from across the nation to inculcate the Congregational Sal'at is be on time and keep it going no matter the numbers. Encourage and strive to bring one more member, and carpooling is fun. It's a lot of fun. You can communicate, and that long drive of 20 minutes to the mosque or less, it makes it like 5 minutes, alhamdulillah. I also agree that creating small group chats, and we'd like for you to chat and remind others by texting on a regular basis about the prayers. And creating a calendar is another suggestion. Online as well, it works where it sends you automatic messages that prayer timings at this is happening right now, or a dry erase board with prayer timings. And also the key here is involve the family, divide the responsibilities amongst the children, set up and clean up, etc. And then there was another suggestion that came was the Fajr Fit, that you can walk or do exercise afterwards, after Fajr prayers, or even after Maghrib prayers just before Isha. The last thing I wanted to share with you was that, and all of these stories that I've relayed to you, all these pictures are someone that's here, that's amongst us. These are real examples. And here's another example that someone had grown up with no Ahmadi family nearby and grew up with Western friends. No Ahmadiyya friends, no idea of Ahmadiyya or Islam, nor did he practice it. He adopted the Western ways. And the father had noticed this and saw this. And then a change happened. And the father became the Qawam of the house. And he created a Salat center, and he also attended the Friday prayers. He took out the children from the schools and went to the Friday prayers, and that was about 45 minutes drive. At the same time, he also rewarded the children for attending and making this effort with McDonald's. And nowadays it's Buffalo Wild Wing or Applebee's, anything, or Chili's. Children love to eat out, and I think it's a good reward for them to recognize what they have done. Again, this was creating a culture of Congregational Sal'at at home. And by doing this and being the example, and by being the leader and making the change, this concept of Congregational Sal'at at home, and not only that, Friday prayers, and taking the children out of school, concept saved him and future generation, alhamdulillah. Jazakallah.
रोशनी का सफर